All right, let me talk about this, the actual substance here, right? The study of the full scope of human diversity, past and present, which is pretty huge. For those of you who've been in anthropology classes before, they can be enormous, right? The full scope of human diversity, past and present. For many people, for many anthropologists, they'd kind of like to end it there, right? They don't, it's just the study of. Guest and other anthropologists have an additional little bit, the application of that knowledge to help people of different backgrounds better understand one another. Like I said, not all anthropologists would go for this. Some people in the, I don't know if it's an age thing or a gender thing, they would say that we don't need to help people understand each other. That's just, who cares if they understand each other? We just want to study. We just want to do the study and the knowledge. But I believe, and I think Guest believes, and I think there's a lot of reasons why we do want to apply that knowledge to do something. Hopefully this has a good effect in the world when you're out there in public health or education or sports medicine, that you're helping people to understand each other. That sounds like a good thing. So in this book, Guest is interested. It's not an applied answer. There is a field of applied anthropology where you're just going out in the world using anthropology to do things, and that is its own kind of subset of anthropology. But Guest here is interested in applying it, or in using anthropology as he calls it a toolkit. We might change up the word for us, a toolbox. So Guest, like others in anthropology, is interested in how anthropology can work in the world, how it can be applied, how we can help people understand one another. And on page 10, he gives the example of Franz Boas in the United States, one of considered perhaps the father of US anthropology, and Audrey Richards, who was studying the Bemba people in what is now Zambia, who were both interested in how anthropology could be applied. And one of the quotes that many anthropologists like, and I like to use sometimes at this stage of starting anthropology, is a quote from Ruth Benedict, who was a student of Franz Boas, one of his first students in the United States in Columbia University, who wrote that the purpose of anthropology is to make the world safe for human differences. Some people haven't found this exact quote, but she said something pretty much like it somewhere in the 1930s. And the reason I bring this up is because, like I said, there are some people in anthropology who want to stop at the study of or the knowledge of. But I believe that from its earliest beginning, from Franz Boas, Audrey Richards, Ruth Benedict, Margaret Mead, Zora Neale Hurston, that anthropology always had this aspect of what should it do in the world? Not just what kind of knowledge it can produce, but how can we use anthropology to do something different in the world? Some people say we haven't lived up to this promise, or things have gone weird for us, and that may be true, but it's something to reflect upon, even when we're in a pure learning aspect. Guest goes on to then talk about anthropology's unique approach, its unique approach. The first thing that Guest talks about here is the Nacirema, anthropology's unique approach. Some of the strangest people in the world. Nacirema. Some of you are smiling. Some of you have been through this before. Who wants to tell us about these people? Yes.
They kind of have like a belief that the human body is naturally like, I guess not necessarily evil, but like dirty, and we'll go with evil. That's a bit extreme, but
Go with, yeah, that it's always perhaps in a sense of decay, and you have to do all these special rituals to make it better, and they have ideals for their body which they can never achieve, and they keep going back to various people and putting potions and pills and stuff in their body to try and achieve these impossible ideals. Yeah, pretty out there. What else? Somebody must have read about them. Was Professor Sugandhi in intro, or me in intro, or some other class? Yeah. Ah, the Holy Mouth Man. Yeah. They were described by this anthropologist, Horace Miner. This is from the 1950s. It was written in 1956. That's why sometimes you need that year. This is like 70 years ago. And they keep going back to this holy mouth man, and their teeth keep decaying, but they keep going back, even though their teeth keep rotting. And holy mouth man is jabbing things into their teeth and doing all kinds of sadistic stuff on them. And they just, yeah. Yes, Jada.
Is used in like anthropology to show like in some people's culture like that's the norm, and like but to others it's perceived to be like weird or like taboo. So it's basically just to show that everybody's culture is different and everything is not going to be the same, and it's American.
Oh, it's American spelled backwards. Is that a coincidence? No, it's not a coincidence. It's because Miner was trying to tell us something. He was acting like an anthropologist would describe the US society of the 1950s from the outside. And so the holy mouth man is just a dentist. All these rites that people were doing, like lacerating, scraping their faces with razors and hog hair. And actually, we used to make toothbrushes out of hog hair, so that wouldn't have seemed so weird back then. You know, all those things are just what we do. And so, yeah, if you haven't read this article, it's freely available. You might want to check it out. But the point of it is, as Jada was telling us, to kind of mess, and as guest tells us eventually, to mess with our ideas of what is familiar and what is strange. And so this is a time-honored tactic in anthropology, is you take something that seems really strange and you show the logic to it, or you show that it isn't so strange if you take it in context. Or you take something that seems so normal and familiar, and you look at it from the outside, and all of a sudden it seems like, why are they doing that? My favorite example, which a student once gave me of an update on the Nacirema, is if Horace Miner, the anthropologist, went out and saw people baking their whole bodies in these ovens to try and change their skin tone. I mean, you think they were doing weird things back in the 1950s, man. People today, whoa, wow. Well, there's a lot of it. This article has been read in various and thousands of different anthropology classes. But I think one of the big points that we can take away from it, this whole exercise of if things are familiar or if things are strange, is that, you know, we don't want to be, well, we're all going to be ethnocentric in some way. I think one of you mentioned that. We're all we're all a little bit ethnocentric, and you need to be somewhat ethnocentric just to be able to survive. Ethnocentric meaning you think that your way of doing things is the natural way or the right way to do things. If we were always questioning everything we did, it would be actually difficult to just walk around and survive and live our lives. So you have to sort of assume what you're doing is correct. But every so often, you want to put what you're doing into a perspective and think back and look at it from different people's eyes. And what you also want to realize is that other people might be doing things that are very different from you, but to them that seems natural and the right thing to do. And so you don't want to think that your way of doing things is the natural way, the God-given way, and that other people's way of doing things is primitive or backward or evil or disgusting. You know, like I said, in our everyday lives, we need a little bit of this just to function, but as anthropologists or as people who are learning about other societies, we want to watch out for the ethnocentrism. All right, like I warned you, people are about to get called on in the next part, which is, again, guest is talking about several aspects of anthropology's unique approach. Tariq, you talked about one of these, one of the things that guest talks about a lot, which is what? What does he talk about in terms of how anthropologists view other societies and cultures?
How anthropology views
Other societies, yeah, and cultures.
I think we describe it as in our rover. She speaks about the interconnectedness of culture and like the importance of like other cultures, like understanding other cultures, obviously.
Yeah, the interconnectedness. This to me is a hugely and very important point. And, you know, we can talk about various ways in which anthropology has a unique approach, but I just want to highlight this one. Anthropologists believe that all humans are connected. Since humans became human, which we did in Africa, as this map shows us, and all the cool human stuff comes to us from Africa and begins in Africa, people have always been connected to each other. And as humans expanded into different parts of the globe, they maintained that connection between groups. They traded with each other. They married each other. They swapped genes with each other, even if they weren't married to each other. They were interconnected all across the globe, and they have maintained that interconnection as one single interbreeding species all throughout our human history. And so here's a longer quote from Guest, which you don't have to copy down because it's longer, but that's, I think, very important. It's crucial to us. Human history is the story of movement and interaction, not of isolation and disconnection. And like I said, this comes to us from thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions, but let's just go with hundreds of thousands of years ago. Movement, being mobile, being able to move to different places, being able to trade, talk, think about what other people are doing in different societies. People who got isolated or disconnected usually didn't make it. That's not a way that humans interact. You can't survive very long if you're isolated or disconnected. Interaction and connection are not new phenomena. They have been central to human history. So like I said, this is very important. It will be important in a second when we talk about globalization. Just keep in mind here this sentence: interaction and connection are not new phenomena. They have been central to human history. Since we became human, this has been always important. Gus then goes off and talks to us about the 4 fields of North American anthropology. He calls it US anthropology, and that's what I used to do too, but then I met somebody who was a Canadian anthropologist, And he said that they had 4 fields in Canada too. So we shouldn't just take it away from the Canadians. They can be 4 fields as well. So 4 fields of North American anthropology. This is kind of like the periodic table for anthropology. Whenever you say, what is anthropology? You're like, oh, it's 4 fields. So, Alex, you said that this was a good part of guest. True?
True.
True. Why?
So I use the quote, constituting the 4-field approach, these interrelated fields are biological anthropology, archaeology, linguistic anthropology, and cultural anthropology. And I said, if you've never studied anthropology, it'd be hard to know all the different moving parts. So he does a good job going through each of them.
All right. Yeah. So biological anthropology. You said you've taken a lot of courses with Professor Anderson, who is our biological anthropologist. A long time ago, this was called physical anthropology. We try to avoid that term these days because that's kind of associated with some stuff we didn't like in anthropology. That also includes primatology, the study of non-human primates. By the way, we humans are primates too, so don't just call other creatures primates without including yourself. If you want to talk about the chimpanzees, you have to call them the non-human primates or the more than human primates. Includes primatology. And also, I think, includes paleoanthropology. Lydia, you said that was good too and guessed the paleoanthropology part. True? So I thought you said you thought you did a good job with that. Yeah. Ah, see, yeah, that's what I warned you about, being caught off guard. The paleo, yeah, no, he does pretty well with that. You didn't like how he did archaeology, though. You said he should do some more archaeology in there. That was your gripe. You wanted some more archaeology. Yeah, I'm going to defend Guest on this one, though. He can't do more archaeology. Why can't he do more about archaeology? Yeah. Why not? It is a cultural anthropology class. There are still some slots open. Yeah. So one of you that's not here wanted actually more about cultural anthropology, like what distinguishes it. And we'll, I guess that's the whole subject of this class. But I thought I might say, for me, what kind of when I think of cultural anthropology in very simple terms, what makes it unique or different from these other fields? I think mainly that one of the things, there's some cultural anthropologists who study historical documents, and that's fine, but most of them have to go talk to somebody. You have to go out, as Guest puts it, you start with people first. You have to go and you have to talk to somebody who can talk back to you. You have to listen to people. You have to study with other people. So cultural anthropology, some of these others, well, linguistic anthropology, you probably have to talk to people too. But some of these other things you may not need to talk. It's always good to talk to people, but you may not need to as much. Bless you. The second thing for me, which is crucial, is what Guest brings up is participant observation. So unlike some other disciplines that do most of their work through surveys or statistics, anthropologists try to put themselves into the situation and, to the extent that it is allowed and possible, become a participant while also always remaining an observer. So actually being in that place, talking to people over a period of time and doing the things that they do to the extent that you are able and allowed. And thus you should never do anthropology in secret or surveilling people. People should know what you're doing, and that should be, you should have permission to do that. And that is what we call ethnographic field work. where you, over a period of time, often for, if you're getting a degree in cultural anthropology for at least a year, you will be in that place with studying with people. And the thing that you will do at the end is write something, which is usually about as long as a book. And that is called an ethnography. So ethnographic simply means, ethno is where we get our word for sort of ethnic or ethnic group, and graphic is, actually a word that originally meant some sort of writing. So literally it means writing about people. Your object is to try and understand things from people's own point of view and produce something that is writing about those people. Some of you found that part of guest. PJ, you found this first part maybe a little too journalistic. Yeah. Why?
It just felt very laid back, weird for a textbook.
Yeah. My feeling is that guest is always going to open up with an example. I'm not sure if it will feel too laid back for you, but there are times when relating things from anthropology feels more like maybe it was journalism, or maybe it's very personal, or maybe it's very informal. And that's supposed to be kind of an advantage to anthropology. It's supposed to be like, present you with these details, not be over the top academic, to present people from their own point of view. But sometimes people might want something that is more, I don't know, science-y or periodic table-y. And, that's kind of there's a certain amount of level of taste there. Usually the difference is that the anthropologist has oftentimes been there a little longer and is trying to get things from people's own point of view, things that you might not get if you were not there. But, if you're not into that perspective, then you'll be sad at the beginning of each chapter. Shaylin, you liked this part.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that was kind of what I wrote about, and that I feel like he did a good job of bridging that unfamiliarity with new content with he would include questions being or comments being you probably know someone who's been through this, and explaining examples of COVID, so kind of just engaging the interest through familiarity. You wouldn't know, if you don't know something, it's not like you're going to be too interested at first.
All right, so yes, in an ideal world, this is helping us bridge, and we're seeing the other people not as these weird others out there, but as humans like ourselves, and we're related, and we can do this human understanding thing, and everybody goes home hugging each other and happy, and we've understood another society. So that would be good. You wanted something, though, that you said guests didn't do with these 4 fields.
Yeah, I kind of nitpicking, but just in terms of bringing it all together and addressing the holistic approach, he explains every field really well and stuff, but then there's an example or some bringing it all together.
Bringing it all together. Yeah, no, this is not nitpicking. I'll tell you the truth that, in fact, in every generation of anthropologists, there's always people who are where's the people who are bringing it all together? Who's the people who are cutting across these 4 fields? You'll notice that Professor Anderson is a biological anthropologist, Professor Sugandhi is an archaeologist, and I'm a cultural anthropologist. And the truth of the matter is that that's the way things have basically gone, is that people specialize in one of these things and then subspecialize, so that there are very few people, maybe none, who bring it all together. I did want to bring up one person who I think has done well at bringing this together. His name is Jason De Leon. he wrote a book called The Land of Open Graves, which was about migrants on the border. He used both biological anthropology and forensic stuff together with a kind of archaeological approach on, how various things like kids' backpacks and stuff would get lost in the desert, did some language stuff and talked to people. He's one of the few people, though, who actually integrates this. He appears, there are 2 whole pages on Jason De Leon, and I used his forthcoming book as an image for our web post, but you can see his picture on pages 28 and 29, which talks about backpacks, baby bottles, and tattoo guns, the stuff of migrant journeys, where he discusses this book. But like I said, there are very few people that can sort of bring this all together. In this class, we'll sometimes try here and there to connect things, but we are mostly going to talk about the cultural anthropology part, which is the largest, that's the largest subfield in terms of number of people who do it in US anthropology, are cultural anthropologists.